in fiscal policy. And the combination of these things together, massive aggregate demand, pent-up savings, now pent-up demand that is being released, together with supply bottleneck that's led to this increase in inflation. And even central banks that for a while were saying this is temporary, only based on base effects, are now agreeing that it's more persistent over time. That's why the Fed, the ECB, the DOE, the Bank of Canada, the RBA, and so on, with exception of the Bank of Japan, they're all phasing out their quantitative easing to different speed, and they're all starting to think about raising policy rates as a way of fighting inflation. If we don't do that, inflation could become endemic, because you'll have a process of a wage price spiral that increases inflation expectation. And if inflation expectation rise too much, too fast, too soon, then you end up into an inflation trap. And if you're going to have also negative supply shock of the sort that I talked about today, globalization is one of them, decoupling between US and China is another one, global climate change, restriction to trade, restriction to migration, even cyber warfare, even pandemic, all these things are negative supply shocks that reduce growth, increase the cost of production, and they can lead not only to inflation, but also to stagflation, low, if not negative growth. So I would say we have to take seriously now the risk of inflation rather than deflation. I wouldn't worry about hyperinflation. I think hyperinflation occurs in extreme situations where you have a runaway fiscal deficit that are monetized forever. It happened in Argentina, it happened in Bolivia, it happened in Zimbabwe, it happened, of course, in the period between World War I and World War II in places like the Weimar Republic of Germany or in Hungary. I don't worry about hyperinflation in the US, in Europe, and advanced economies, but I do worry about the fact that inflation is going to be much higher than before, and that's going to present significant dilemmas for central banks. There'll be time if you do, and then if you don't. If they fight inflation, they could cause a recession. If they don't fight inflation, and because they care about growth and jobs, then they may unanchor inflation expectation and lead us eventually to high inflation and eventually to stagflation.